Hello, light seekers, and welcome back to the Process of Heart. My name is Erica, and in this week's episode, we are going to be talking about grace and 4 methods and questions that we can ask ourselves to respond to life's changes and situations with more grace. With that, let's open up our hearts and let our light shine. I am going to start to play with how we begin each week's episode. This week's episode, I am going to play with the idea of an affirmation to start. My affirmation for this week is I am the perfect balance of grace and authority. This affirmation comes from a good friend and coworker that I worked with a few years ago. Her name is Elisa. So if you're ever watching this, thank you so much for these beautiful words. They have given me a ton of comfort and support in the past years. This affirmation is important to me, and I find it coming up pretty often in my life anytime that I have any kind of self-doubt, which we, of course, talked about last week. But I've found this to be really important because I do want to lead with both grace and authority. I want people to feel comfortable having me as their leader in any sense, that I can, make judgment calls and help others, and that they feel confident with the decisions that I'm making, which I feel like comes from that authority. But I don't ever want to do it with like a heavy hand, if you will. I definitely want my leadership to come in a graceful manner, with a gentleness and love and light about it as well. So it's been a wonderful affirmation, and I hope that it proves some support and kindness to you as well. So again, I am the perfect balance of grace and authority. In last week's video, I gave the journal prompt to help us all to learn more about fear and self-doubt, where we feel those in the body, how they feel, and how they are similar and different from one another. The importance of having this understanding of these different emotions is that it helps us to learn better about what kind of triggers we may have, whether it be from the environment or the people around us, so that we can learn more about what makes us feel a certain way. Once we have that understanding, we're able to better control our own emotions and reactions to situations and environments. And it helps us to be able to move through our day-to-day lives with more grace. So with that said, I'm going to be sharing my journal entry, what I kind of felt and learned about myself and my fears of self-doubt and fear. So I hope you enjoy. All right, so the first part of the journal prompt was, what does fear feel like in your body and where do you feel it? And I said, for me, fear feels like a heat. I put that it is a lot in between my shoulder blades. So just kind of feels like a heating up, almost like when you are like embarrassed about something and you have like that heat that climbs up the back of your neck, is kind of the experience that I have, but in between my shoulder blades instead. I also feel my neck get tense with that, and it made me almost kind of think, I realized of it as like an animal of prey right before they're about to be attacked, is kind of like the sense of like tension and just like all very like a sudden anxiety that comes from it. So that's what I put for where and what fear feels like to me. As for self-doubt, I put that I feel self-doubt actually on my chest and around my heart. It is also kind of a heat, but is also more of like a heavy, it's more weighted for me there. And I feel like I feel my shoulders kind of like pulling forward with that as well. And I felt like I felt a shell closing in around me, almost like an egg of just kind of like coming into this thing and having some kind of shell or encasing around me with it. Like where it would be something that's easy to break through, but you have the question of like, do I want to, break through this feeling of self-doubt when I could, just stay and do less and feel better, and not have to push through and like fight for whatever it is that you're trying to move into, whatever challenge you're creating for yourself that you have this self-doubt about. The next part of the journal was, how are these feelings similar? So to me, I said that they both felt warm, and they both kind of raised the question for me of uncertainty of, is this okay? Where I kind of want to feel into it and like test. It's like you're putting one toe in the water to kind of feel through like, what is this emotion? So I found myself really curious about both of them when I was feeling into both sets of fear. It wasn't something that I immediately was retracting from. So those were my similarities. And then lastly, how are they different? So I said self-doubt had a very deceitful comfort to it. Like I mentioned, I felt like it was almost like if you've had like a friend who they're kind of toxic and they put you in a bad place, but you still want to hang out with them because you've had a past, and there's a level of comfort that comes from that. That's really how I felt like self-doubt felt, was that I I was able to relax into a space of comfort, even though in my head I knew this isn't the best environment for me to be in. It's not a place that like really, for somebody who wants to grow and have that self-growth and to be able to provide that to others. I know that I can't live in self-doubt, but it's nice to not have to challenge yourself. And I think we all feel that, of not always wanting to move forward through something. So that's how self-doubt is different. Fear feels scary and bad. It feels like something I don't want to have in my life. It feels like something I don't want to have to feel, and anything that I was fearful of would want to just have pushed out of my life. There's no deceitful comfort in fear, in my opinion. So, love to hear what you have to say about your feelings on fear and self doubt. If you felt anything similar or different, would love to have a conversation with you down in the comments. So, feel free to comment down there if you'd like to open up the discussion a bit more. So, grace to me has always felt like kind of an elusive term. It's something that's hard to pinpoint without having the example right in front of you sometimes. And while I find that that is the general nature of grace, I wanted to take some time because I've been told in the past that people find that I'm responding gracefully to different situations that I've been put in. And I've never really considered myself to be that. I just have been given that feedback. So I started asking the question, what am I doing that people are seeing as grace? What am I doing that is reflecting into the world as something graceful? And I've come up with these methods and questions that we can ask ourselves to respond with more grace. So I hope that you'll give them a try. Let me know what you think about these different methods and if you're able to apply these questions to the situations you're faced with in your daily lives. Question number 1 is all about flexibility. So ask yourself, how can I bend without pushing myself outside of my comfort zone? There are absolutely situations where we can make a compromise or come to somebody else's terms, and it doesn't impact our comfort zone or our core beliefs. And I think that that's really important, that we know what we believe in, but also that in times when things aren't really affecting something at a core level, that we're able to adapt gracefully and make changes to, our own exceptions of the situation. Just to kind of give a brief example of this, the Enneagram gives a lot of details about different numbers and different personality types, the defense mechanisms that we've put up in our lives to help to survive in the world. So as an Enneagram number 9, like I am, flexibility is all that I know. I always want peace as a 9 in the Enneagram numbers. And with that, often I'm finding myself compromising. While I have definitely taken this to the extreme at times, compromising at times where I'm not necessarily comfortable doing so, I do think that there has been a lot of benefit to having this as kind of a personality type, of having that flexibility, and do believe that it's been a huge piece of the grace that people see within me. So again, ask yourself the question, how can I bend in this situation, asterisk, without pushing myself past my own beliefs? The next method that I think is helpful to practice grace is reflection. And the question that we can ask ourselves here is, how can I grow from this situation? For me, this moment of reflection and this gracefulness that I can think of as a situational example was when I was actually doing my training for my certification to do dog training. So part of the certification was getting paired up with a mentor, and you would be going on while they were doing courses and classes for other people to train their dogs. So I was paired up with a mentor, and while he was really great with animals, he knew it and said it himself. He was not a people person. He was there for the dogs and to be able to help them. So his methods were often very abrupt and blunt when he was talking to people. And I had asked him at the end of a class one time about a way that I was training a dog, and I kept saying, like, the dog's not getting it, the dog's not getting it. And he looked at me and he was just like, well, it's not the dog's fault. And in that moment, I was honestly taken aback and just felt like it was almost kind of rude the way that he had addressed the situation like that. But quickly was able to respond with grace and take that extra second to ask myself, how can I grow from this situation? And realize that while it was a little blunt, it was also very truthful, that I definitely wasn't trying to adapt and think of new ways to work with training the dog, and that at the end of the day, it's not the dog's fault for not understanding my training. It's my fault for not being able to adapt and change the way that I was training the dog. Another way that we can practice responding with grace is by asking ourselves the question, how can I show gratitude in this situation? So gratitude, I think, is a great method that we can use to be more graceful in situations. The example that comes to mind for me with this one is actually when my dad passed in September of 2021. I got, of course, I think the main thing that people think to say when they hear that is, I'm sorry for your loss. And while it is appreciated to have that, a lot of the times it wasn't what I wanted to hear, because that's what everybody says, and it starts to feel really repetitive. But being able to step out of that place for me and be able to respond with gratitude of, thank you. Of course, they mean well with what they're saying. And it's hard, I think, for anybody to be able to really say anything when it comes to the loss of somebody else's loved ones. But I think being able to say thank you when somebody said that to me was important for me to be able to respond gracefully rather than maybe lashing out with the true like pain that I was maybe feeling in that moment. And I find this last one is the most fun, so I figured we'd end on a more lighthearted note. And the last method that we can use to practice grace more often in our life is by not taking ourselves too seriously. So we can ask the question here of, how can I laugh in this situation? And I think that this situation really responds and resonates with me as how I can be more graceful towards myself. And I think that laughing at our mistakes is one of the best things that we can do, to not take ourselves too seriously and allow ourselves the grace of making mistakes. We're all human. We're never going to be perfect. And by allowing ourselves to take that time to laugh at the mistakes that we've made and to ask how we can laugh in situations really allows us to have more gracefulness towards ourselves. To end this episode, I'm going to take a little bit of my own advice about responding to change with grace. I am still reading the same two books, and so I found that it was maybe time to change and to be a little bit more flexible with how I start to end these episodes. So instead of talking about the books that I'm reading, I'm going to share a video of my art. Again, I use the app Procreate for all of my digital art, at least. And this is a series that I'm working on called The Element Girls. And this is the first of the collection, which is the element of water. So I hope that you enjoy this quick little view of the process of my art, and hope that this will be a good way to end the process of heart. Before we wrap up this episode, I wanted to offer another journal challenge if you wish to participate. And this week we are doing a love letter to yourself. I had actually been given this as a challenge when I was working with a life coach a few years ago. If you are interested in life coaching, let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to share details about the life coach that I use. She's a great friend and a great resource, and really wonderful about helping us to learn more about how to live a more balanced life. So, with that, the love letter that I wrote to myself reads: Dearest Erica, you are so truly beautiful inside and out. You treat everyone fairly and trust that people are always of the best intentions. I truly admire that about you. I love that you are always loyal to yourself and your values, as well as to those you care about. You have an amazing talent to create by your voice, your body, and by pen and paper. You are uniquely you. You may not know all of the answers, but you are always willing to grow and learn. Your willingness to adapt and overcome will serve you well as you move through life and achieve all of the goals that you set up for yourself. You are amazing and fierce and beautiful, truly inside and out. Love yourself. So I found this journal earlier in the week when I was going through just some past journals, just thinking about different topics and things that I wanted to focus on for this week, and found this one and thought that it was just a really lovely way to end the episode for you all to go ahead and try to do that for yourself. So I hope that you do participate. If you do, please feel free to leave your journal in the comments if you would like to, and know that you can come back to this in future years and find this comment for you to have this little love letter to yourself. Personally, I wrote mine in my journal, but it's a great little time capsule to have for yourself, and a great way to kind of feel into some love for yourself as well. I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode of The Process of Heart. If you did and would like to help to create a ripple effect of kindness in the world, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so that we can spread more luscious creativity and support to the world. Until next time, bye, light seekers.